Okay, I wanted to take some time to refactor our tests. We have a lot of unnecessary duplication here as I'm not really utilizing factories to their full potential. So if we look at one of our test cases, and this is the same for many of our test cases, we are creating everything we need for the idea manually. For example, a user, a category, and a status, and then we're assigning it to the idea here. So a lot of the times, for example, in this specific test case, we don't even care about that, and we should let the factory handle that automatically so we don't have to write it here in our test case. So if you take a look at our idea factory here, I am just generating a number between 1 and 20 for the user, 1 and 4 for the category, and 1 and 5 for the status. And that's because I wanted seed data for whenever I tested in the browser. So right now I have 20 users, so 1 for this user or my user and 19 random ones. And then I manually create 4 categories and then create 5 statuses here. And then I'm making use of the factory to make sure it's within these bounds here. So that's the reason the factory doesn't create new categories or new statuses directly in here. And when I was writing tests, I sort of just tunnel vision and started copying and pasting from previous tests instead of making use of factories. So ideally, I like to have both cases. I still want to be able to generate 100 ideas here and have them within the bounds of these. But I also want to create statuses and categories and users automatically when I don't care about it in the specific test case. So we can make use of factory states for this. So if you scroll down here, there is a section for states, factory states. So let's have a state for each of the cases I mentioned. So let's grab this. And for this case, the only time I want the bounds to be within these numbers is in the seeder here. So let's make a state for that. Let's call it, let's say existing. So let's change this. And we can grab this. So the user, the status, and the category. And we want it to be this. But now in our factory, we can generate a new user, a new category, and a new status automatically. So we can just say user factory, and the same for the others as well. So let me just copy this. Okay, and let's replace these with the category, and this for the status. And I'm not sure if I have the factories defined, so let's make sure that they are. So the user should be defined because that comes with Laravel. Sorry, user factory, okay. Let's check the status. And I did define it, cool. And the category is defined as well. So now in our database header, like I said, for this case, we only want the status and the categories to be within these bounds. So we want it to be this existing state that we just created. So we can do existing, create. So I'm going to migrate fresh seed, and then we'll take a look at the database. Okay, so we have an error here. Sorry, it shouldn't be a property, it should be a method. Okay, so let's try that again. Migrate fresh seed. And we have to import category in our factory and status. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Okay, so now it looks like it works. And if you take a look at the database, you'll see that we still have 100 ideas and the bounds are within what we defined. Okay, so that's good. Let's verify if we call the factory normally, it generates what we want. So in this case, we wanted to generate a new user, a new category, and a new status when we call it normally. So let's go ahead and tinker. Let's do idea. Let me just clear this. Factory create. And this should create an idea, but also a user, a status, and a category. Okay, so it created that idea. As you can see, we have 101 now. Refresh this, you'll see 101. And it should have also created a new category. And it did right there. A new status right here. And a new user. And there's 21 now. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. We have those two cases. And now in our tests, we can get rid of everything that we don't need. So Let's go back to this test here. For example, so this one tests if the livewire component shows up, and we don't care about any of this, so we can get rid of all of this. We actually don't need this too, so let's get rid of it. And this test should still pass. We can get rid of the variable too, so let's try that. And it still passes. So let's go ahead and do a few more here. So this one is the livewire component correctly receives the votes count. So we need 2 users, but we don't really care about the category and the status, so we can get rid of that. We can get rid of it here as well. And we don't really care about the title and description as well. Actually, we don't care about the user as well. All we care about is that there are 2 votes on this idea here, so we can get rid of the user as well. And if you want, you can even inline the factory call in here. But I think it's easier to read if I see it up here. So when I'm reading my tests, I automatically see that we need 2 users and an idea, and then we're voting for that idea given these 2 users. So this should still pass, and it does. Cool. Let's do one test where we actually keep some of the data that we need. So for example, in the category filters test, we're going to need to keep some of the categories. So selecting a category filters correctly. So again, if you want, you can just inline this in here, right here, but I like seeing it on top, so we'll keep that. So this one has 3 ideas. So 2 of them are from category 1, and this one's from category 2. So we can keep these 2. Or again, if you want, you can just inline it in here, but I like keeping it up here. We don't need the status. Actually, we don't even need the user because we don't care about who created the idea, because we're just testing the category filter in this case. So we don't even need this. We need the category. We don't need the title or description. And we can get rid of these as well. So we only care about the category. Same for this one. Okay, and this should still work, hopefully. And it does, cool. But we've shortened our test significantly. So yeah, I'm just going to go behind the scenes and pretty much do the same thing for each test, making sure that we don't have anything that we don't need. So I'll be back when that's done. Okay, I'm back and I've cleaned up every test. So let's go ahead and run our tests. I have this new alias called test P, which is just PHP Artisan Test Parallel. So let's run that. And everything is passing. So a few things here. I created this new folder for our filter tests. Kind of makes sense to group them together, so I've done that. Just add a new namespace here for the filters tests. Also for this admin set status test, I've added a new state here on the user factory called admin. So let's check that out. I just added this new one here, and it just adds an email of an admin. So if you take a look at one of the diffs here for our tests, you'll see that we've removed a lot of unnecessary code, which is definitely a good thing for our refactoring of our tests. Okay, let's take a look at something else here. Let's take a look at where we're asserting against a large block of HTML. So here, here, and also I believe down here. So I've tried to minimize this. I think I did a refactoring for one of the tests before. But like I said, these are extremely brittle. For example, if I wanted to change the padding, this test will break. So one way to fix this would be to extract this to an actual class. So any CSS changes won't result in the test breaking. For example, I believe this is a badge. If we named it badge, then that would be okay too. But what I'm going to do here is just change the name of the status. So the reason I have this for this particular test, and same for the other 2 tests above. Actually, first let me show you the test. So the test is single idea shows correctly on the show page. So this is just asserting that, let's go back to our actual app here. And that doesn't work because we have a new set of data here. So let me just hard refresh. So that's asserting that this badge shows correctly. And I can't just assert the name of the status because the name of the status also appears up here. So the easiest fix would be to just change the name of the status when we're creating it up here. So we have it right here. And in this case, it's open. We actually don't need the classes here, so let me remove that. And let's just rename it to something else. So let's say open unique. And then we can just assert that we see the text open unique instead of that whole block of HTML. So let's remove this false and let's see if this works. And it does, cool. So we can do the same for the other two above. I believe they're here. So we have open and considering. So let's change that. Let's say, again, we don't need these classes. So let's rename them to open unique and considering unique. Okay. And let's assert against that instead. Okay, so this is open unique. We don't need a second param. And this one's considering unique. And let's test that out. And it does work. So one more feature that I forgot to add when creating ideas is to automatically vote for an idea after you create it. So I want to create an idea. So let's actually do that here. Let's create an idea. Let me log in here. So after I create an idea, I want to automatically vote for it. So let's say new idea, hello there. And then I want it to automatically have one vote, and the logged in user should be the one who voted for it. So let's do that. Actually, let's start with the test. So that should be the create idea test. And it should be down here, create idea. Creating an idea works correctly. And down here, we assert that the idea or the newly created idea is in the ideas table. So we can do the same for the vote that we expect. So let's say votes, the user ID or the idea ID is 1, since there's only one, the one we just created. And same for the user ID. So let's say user ID is 1 as well. So if we run this, obviously this is going to fail because we haven't implemented it yet. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to create idea. And after we create the idea, so right here, we can vote for that idea. So we can do this in two ways. We can use the vote model directly and create a new entry. So the idea ID is the idea ID. And let's grab that from up here. Okay. And the user ID is the logged in user. Okay. And that's going to be auth ID. Okay, so let's see if this works. I think we have to import vote. And let's run that test. And then we'll see if it works in the browser. So let's run this. And it does pass. Actually, before I run it in the browser, a few changes here. Instead of wrapping all of the code in this auth check, let's just return early if we're a guest. So if auth guest, then abort. So we can grab this, put this in here, and we no longer need to wrap our code in this if statement. Okay, so let's get rid of this and let's fix the indentation here. Okay, so this should work. Let's run that test again. Still passes. And I believe instead of doing this, we have a method on the idea model that lets us vote directly for an idea. So where is it? Right here, vote. So we can do idea vote user instead of doing this. So let's see if that works. So we have idea, vote, and the user voting for this idea is the logged in user. Okay, let's see if this works. And then we'll test it in the browser. So let's save that. Let's run the test again. Still works. Okay, and let's get rid of this. And let's go ahead and test this in the browser real quick. Let's refresh. I'm logged in. Another idea. Hello there. And this should automatically be voted for. And it is. Cool. So one more time, let's run our entire test suite. We are passing and our tests are much cleaner. So as always, let's make a commit. This is episode 36. So git add, git commit, episode 36, refactor tests.